Hi, hello, and welcome. I'm definitely not yapping, and we're gonna take a look at the new affix that's going to be replacing the damn orbs from Season 1 in Season 2. It's called Pulsar. It's been data mined, so let's take a quick look at what it actually does. They did mention this Pulsar. So it says, while in combat, Xalatath summons pulsars that orbit players, replaces the bargain in Season 1, from Season 1 in Season 2. As the post mentions, the orbs were super buggy. It would go through the floor, through the walls. They'd avoid you. They literally try to run away from you. It's not running away from you, actually. It's really silly. So I think they use the AI that they use for enemies that are trying to reach you to intercept you. So if you ran towards it to try and collect it, it would look like it was running away from you, but actually was trying to reach the spot that you were going for and it going at a slower speed. It looked like it was trying to just kind of run away from you, but it was just trying to make an intercept point. And it's just poor use of the AI. And also there were some boss fights where that affix was just incredibly punishing and just unavoidable for like a boss fight to just get a bunch of orbs, because unless you have like a paladin that can just bubble and go collect things or whatever, it was just brutal. So let's take a look at what they're replacing it with. This is the description. It repeats 3 times, but these are 3 different spells, so to speak. So one has a 4-second cast in 100-yard range, another one is instant and unlimited range, and another one is instant and unlimited range. I'm assuming this is like the cast of the ability by the dungeon, so to speak, the actual debuff or buff on enemies, debuff on players and buff on enemies, whatever. There might be buffs on players, buffs on enemies, whatever it is. The tooltips are the same, so let's take a look. Xalatath summons void pulsars that orbit players. After 15 seconds, the void pulsar releases its energy to grant creatures the gift, increasing damage done by 10% and reducing damage taken by 20% for 20 seconds. Players that come into contact with a void pulsar empower other players, granting them 4% mastery and 2% leech for 30 seconds. This effect stacks. So you'll end up with 20% mastery and 10% leech when you finish this up, like if you do it correctly. So what you're supposed to do is stack up. Go ahead and hug each other, and from what I can gather, it doesn't matter who you run into. You just have to go hug someone. So if you have 2 ranged, they can hug each other, and the melee can all gather together, and it can be just fine. Now, this gives flashbacks of Thundering. This gives flashbacks of some other things, where there's going to be a mechanic where you have to spread out, but you can't because you have to do this, and if you don't do this, you buff up the mobs, so on and so forth. But this does seem less punishing because you don't have to. In Thundering, you had to find someone with the corresponding sign or whatever. Here, you just need to find someone. Just find a buddy, hug it out, and you should be fine. So this seems significantly less punishing than Thundering or anything else like that. I'm not very pessimistic about this, but I have a feeling that there's going to be wipes to this, because you're going to be doing a boss that wants you to spread out, or you're going to try and like stack up for it right as something happens, or, you know, the usual of just an affix is going to distract you from some core mechanic of the dungeon. But that's not on this affix specifically. There's just a bunch of affixes that do that. One issue that I see is for team comps, if there is a ranged player that likes to be off in Narnia, which is usually the case, there's usually at least one. You have one. If you have a group of friends you play with, you have one that plays ranged that likes to just sit in the corner and just watch from afar. I mean, if it's an evoker, they're not that far, but let's say it's any other class that has ranged abilities. Shit, man, even paladins are longer range than evoker. But there's always one guy who sits off by the side. Or another issue might be where you only have one ranged. And I don't know, I'm thinking of the fight on, what's that called? The ship in Dawnbreaker. Obviously, we're not going to have Dawnbreaker next season, but there's probably going to be some kind of similar affix where you have to not be stacked, but also you need your range need to do a specific thing, like not be close to the melee, so that the things that target them don't go to the melee. And if you only have one range, then that becomes an issue. So there's definitely going to be fights where this is going to feel very, very annoying, but I'm sure there's ways to handle this One is just having the right team comp, which means having at least 2 ranged. So don't, get something that's ranged and get a ranged healer maybe. But healers, there's not that many healers. You can pick and choose when you're pugging, at least not in season 1, and especially not right now. But yeah, this seems not bad at all, honestly. It's a lot better than the stupid orbs. The orbs were so incredibly annoying. It was extremely punishing, and it's a good thing that they removed them. Another thing that I can point out is that 15 seconds is quite a lot. Usually mechanics don't last. You don't need to stay away from each other for 15 seconds. So 15 seconds feels like it's a generous enough amount of time. And that is actually, I feel like that is a good tweaking or tuning knob for them to, hey, people are constantly dying to mechanics because they have to go to each other when this affix is up. So give them more time so that they can wait out the mechanic, do the mechanic, and then go and take care of the pulsar. I feel like that would be a good way to tune this, is just give people more time. And if you feel like nobody's dying because of this, nobody really cares about this, it's too easy, please just leave it like it is. No, I'm kidding. But you could lower this. You could lower this to 10 seconds or whatever, and then it becomes more high stakes. When you see pulsar up, you're like, okay, I have 10 seconds to do this. 15 seconds is, I feel, a generous enough amount of time for this to not be a huge issue. I guess I'll take this opportunity to talk in general about how the affixes have been changed, because I don't think I've mentioned that on my channel. So affixes are changed where unified enemy buffs on all Xal'atath bargain affixes with Xal'atath's gift, increasing damage done up to 50% and reducing damage taken up to 100% for 20 seconds on all nearby enemies in combat. So basically, the affixes, instead of one of them granting mobs haste or whatever, they all just do the same thing, which is more damage and more damage reduction. That way you can't just, I think they did this just so that you can't ignore certain affixes. This doesn't seem like something that made life a lot easier for anyone. Nobody wants the mobs to be taking reduced damage, that's for sure. Definitely not the DPS. But in the long run, nobody wants it because it'll make fights longer and everything. But the increased damage is definitely very, very scary. But this definitely, this is going to force people to actually do the affixes. You can't really ignore it anymore. I am a little surprised that the dispel affix hasn't really been addressed. I guess Blizzard doesn't really think it's an issue. Then again, healers seem to not really care about it either because they can just blast the heals on it. That's what I've been told. I haven't actually healed a key with that up, so that's going to be interesting if I run into that while I'm doing my healer series. Then we have the Pulsar affix is being mentioned here. That's something we just discussed. And then there's the Guile redesign. It's not a redesign if you just bumped it from 10 to 12%, but okay. Voidbound has been redesigned. Dark Prayer now has a 15-second cast time and grants all nearby enemies in combat the gift when the cast completes. No longer grants reduction while active. So this is really cool. I think that it says right here, potency of the gift granted by Dark Prayer is based on the remaining shield percentage on the Void Emissary. So if you manage to just almost kill it, it's not going to be as punishing as if you just ignored it. And what I really, really, really like is the fact that you don't have to immediately swap to it. That's actually a really good change, because right now, as it is, when it shows up, you have to nuke it from orbit. Like, you need to immediately switch to it. Otherwise, mobs start taking less damage, making the pull longer, making it a huge pain in the booty hole. And sometimes the Voidbound is like standing over in Narnia together with your ranged player from the group that doesn't want to group or stack or anything. So it can be a little bit annoying, but this is at least going to make it less punishing, unless you completely ignore it again, but that's on you. So I like this change overall. In general, I like these changes. I don't like this 12% change instead of 10%, but hey, that's just their choice. Hopefully they did like extensive number tuning and stuff to make this not feel horrible, but I'm pretty sure it's still going to feel horrible when you go from an 11 to a 10, from an 11 to a 12, and the mobs hurt that much more and are that much tankier. But they seem to be doubling down on this route. They definitely want Guile to be there, and I don't know, man. It makes it that much harder to go from a person who does 10s and 11s to then 12s, because you're not doing an 11 and then doing a 12. You're doing an 11 and then you're doing a 15 or 16. It's a jump in so many key levels that it's not even funny. Sure, you can argue you don't have to deal with affixes anymore, but affixes, the bargains, oftentimes they just help you because there's one person, at least in the group, that's going to handle them, and that's it, you know. So yeah, it just becomes really hard. But that's it regarding affixes. I'm not going to talk about this account-wide achievement. Basically, it's just like a way to stop depletes on 12s, which is amazing. I'm 99.9% that all 17 of the key pushers left in the game. I'm kidding. I'm being so dramatic about this, but I think that the minority, like vanishingly small amount of the player base that does this, will be overjoyed about this. And that's nothing but good. This takes away nothing from me as someone who doesn't do 12s or higher. This is just an amazing, really nice thing that Blizzard did. Is like they hear the community that is the most passionate by far about this game. And as far as M Plus is concerned, obviously, there's also raiders and whatnot, but I don't mean to take away from any other group. But some of the most passionate people about the game are in this group of people that push past 12 and go into like 17s and crazy shit. And they're rewarding them, and they're saying like, hey, we hear you. It really sucks to have to eat. Like, you guys want to have the tournament realm on here. You want to just spam keys. Once you finally get the key you want to be able to just do it until you time that level, and then move on. And if you want to drop it, you can drop it. If not, you just rock it. And that's amazing. This is really cool, but I don't want to yap about it too much about anything else. I already yapped enough, I think. Okay, with that said, it's pretty much the end of this video. Hopefully you enjoyed my little yap, my little take on the new Xalatath bargain, the Void Pulsar. Let me know what you guys think about it. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.